sleep, head tan, cold eye and collar, under the mud we crawl.
The year is 330 BCE, and for a fleeting moment, it feels like an entire civilization is being erased from existence. The night sky glows with violent fire as Persepolis, one of the most magnificent cities ever built, collapses into ruin. This is not the chaos of battle. This is deliberate. A young conqueror stands watching, convinced he has just wiped an empire from history. Gold liquefies in the heat, massive columns split and crash to the ground. Soldiers celebrate as they carry away the final remnants of a defeated world. To them, this is more than victory. It is an ending. This is how empires disappear. At least, that's what everyone believed. But hidden within the flames, something invisible was unfolding. Something no army, no king, no empire could anticipate. Because on that night, Persia wasn't dying. It was evolving into something far more dangerous. History conditions us to see patterns. Empires rise, expand, dominate, and eventually collapse. The Assyrians faded into obscurity. The Babylonians dissolved into memory. Even Rome, once thought eternal, fractured until it became something unrecognizable. Power weakens, identity erodes, the conqueror replaces the conquered. This cycle repeats so often it feels like an unbreakable rule. Always the same outcome, always. Until it wasn't. Because hidden within that pattern, there was an exception, a civilization that refused to disappear. Persia, what we now call Iran, did not follow the rules. It did not simply survive invasions, it absorbed them. It did not just endure conquest, it transformed those who conquered it. And for over 5,000 years, it continued to exist in one of the most volatile regions on Earth. Which forces us to ask a different question, not how it won its wars, but how it survived losing them. Long before the names of Greece or Rome echoed through history, the Iranian plateau was already shaped by pressure and transformation. This was not a protected land, isolated by oceans or natural barriers. It was exposed, open to migration, invasion, and constant conflict. Early civilizations like Elam emerged here, navigating power struggles with Mesopotamia, adapting through trade, diplomacy, and war. Stability was never guaranteed. Survival was never optional. And over time, something deeper began to form, not just a culture, but a mindset, an understanding that identity could not rely on borders alone. Then came the migrations. Indo-European tribes entered the region, bringing new languages, new beliefs, and a new sense of identity. They called themselves Aryans, meaning noble, and gave that name to their land. Over centuries, that word evolved into something we still recognize today, Iran. But the name itself was never the most important part. What mattered was the idea behind it, the belief that this identity, this land, was worth preserving at any cost. And when a civilization begins to see itself that way, it becomes something far harder to erase. But identity alone cannot sustain a civilization. It needs purpose, meaning, a reason to endure. And that reason came in the form of an idea that would reshape everything. Zoroastrianism did not simply introduce a religion, it redefined how people understood existence. The world was no longer an endless cycle, it became a battleground, a constant struggle between truth and chaos, light and darkness. And to exist within that framework meant choosing a side. To be Iranian was not just to belong to a place, it was to stand for something. And beliefs like that outlive empires. By the time Cyrus the Great rose to power in the 6th century BCE, that identity was already deeply rooted. But Cyrus understood something most conquerors never did. Power alone does not hold an empire together. People do. Instead of ruling through fear, he ruled through integration. Conquered societies were not destroyed, they were incorporated. Their traditions were respected. Their leaders were often allowed to remain. It was a strategy that defied expectations, and it worked. Instead of resistance, it created loyalty. The Achaemenid Empire expanded not just in territory, but in stability. But no system is immune to pressure. As the empire grew, it became more complex, more difficult to control. Small fractures began to appear. And then Alexander arrived. Young, relentless, and driven by something deeper than ambition, Alexander of Macedon did not just want to defeat Persia, he wanted to replace it. His campaigns were fast, brutal, unstoppable. Cities fell, armies collapsed, and when he finally reached Persepolis, he made a decision that would echo across history. He burned it, not out of necessity, but as a message. To him, Persia was finished. But history had other plans, because instead of vanishing, Persia began to reshape him. Alexander adopted Persian customs. He dressed like a Persian king. He brought Persian elites into his inner circle. The very culture he tried to destroy began to influence the empire he was building. And after his death, his successors continued that transformation. He may have won the war, but he lost control of what came after. And this is where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Centuries later, the Parthians rose, pushing out Greek influence and restoring Iranian power. They didn't just survive, they challenged Rome itself, resisting one of the most powerful military forces in history. Then came the Sassanids, rebuilding a centralized empire that rivaled Byzantium, strengthening traditions, reinforcing identity. Once again, Iran was not a remnant of the past, but a dominant force in the present. And then, everything collapsed again. In the 7th century, Arab armies swept across the region with overwhelming force. The Sassanid Empire fell, the king was killed, Zoroastrianism declined, Islam took its place. For most civilizations, this would have been the end, a complete replacement of identity, a final chapter. But Iran did not disappear. Instead, something quieter and far more powerful began to unfold. Persian administrators became essential to the new Islamic system. Persian scholars shaped its intellectual and cultural foundations. Persian poets gave it language, emotion, and depth. The conquerors had taken the land, but they had not erased its essence. Without realizing it, they became part of it. And then came the Mongols. In the 13th century, destruction reached a level that is almost impossible to comprehend. Entire cities were erased, populations were annihilated, systems that had sustained life for centuries were destroyed in days. If there was ever a moment when Iran should have vanished, this was it. But once again, the pattern repeated. Within a few generations, Mongol rulers began to change. They converted to Islam, they adopted Persian administrative systems, they spoke Persian, they supported Persian culture and art. The invaders did not just occupy the land, they became part of it. And it happened again, with Timur, with later dynasties, the same sequence repeating over and over: conquest, destruction, absorption. This was not luck, it was not coincidence, it was a system. Iran had developed something incredibly rare, a kind of cultural gravity, a force strong enough not only to survive invasion, but to pull its invaders inward. A civilization that understood what most empires never do, that survival is not about avoiding defeat, but about controlling what comes after it. By the time the Safavid Empire emerged in the 16th century, Iran was no longer just surviving, it was redefining itself. By establishing Shia Islam as the state religion, it created a distinct identity, separating itself from its neighbors and reinforcing its continuity in a changing world. Even in the modern era, the pattern never truly broke. Foreign interference, shifting borders, revolutions. And in 1935, the country formally asked to be called Iran instead of Persia, not to erase its past, but to assert its continuity. A message to the world that this civilization was not gone, it was still here. So the question remains, how does a civilization survive for over 5,000 years in one of the most contested regions on Earth? How does it endure wave after wave of conquest without losing itself? The answer is not in its armies, not in its borders, not even in its rulers. It lies in its ability to transform defeat into absorption, to turn invaders into participants, to outlast not just enemies, but entire eras of history. Because in the end, most empires try to control the world around them. Iran did something different. It learned how to shape the world that tried to control it. And maybe that's why it never truly fell. Because the most powerful civilizations are not the ones that avoid collapse, but the ones that continue long after collapse should have been inevitable.